Hi everyone. In this video we're going to be taking a look specifically at cortisol and how it's regulated and some of the effects that it has in the body. So remember the last video, what we did was we looked at the different hormones of the adrenal gland. This was one of those hormones that were secreted from the adrenal cortex. We're going to take a look at it a little bit more because we don't really get into it like we get into other hormones later on in the different chapters. So that's how we're going to look at it a little bit more here. So let's first take a look. Let's take a look at this, and then I'm going to go back and look at that. So remember that cortisol was one of those that is controlled by the hypothalamus anterior pituitary little link right there. So hypothalamus, remember, secreted CRH, and it told the anterior pituitary to secrete ACTH. And that goes to the adrenal cortex to tell it to secrete glucocorticoids, the cortisol and cortisone. But what I want to talk about is, well, what even causes the hypothalamus to secrete CRH in the first place? So one of the things is cortisol levels in the blood. If there's not enough cortisol levels in the blood, you see this little negative feedback that we have right here going back and saying, hey, we need some more cortisol in the blood. So hypothalamus, let's get your little thing going here. But other things that might stimulate it to be released can be stress. So really any kind of stress. And we'll talk about it a little bit in the next video. We're going to take a look a little bit more about this whole stress response that we have, because the adrenal gland is sometimes known as like the stress gland. And this cortisol can be, is sometimes called the stress hormone because of that. So stress is definitely going to be one of those causes that's going to cause it to be secreted. One of those stimuli that's going to cause it to be secreted. So it can be physical stress, it can be emotional stress, anything like that. Another thing is going to be sleep. So late stages of sleep, you're naturally going to secrete it. So you do, of course, have to have a little bit of cortisol in the bloodstream. So this is going to be very natural. We'll talk about what happens whenever we have chronic stress and how that can cause some problems. So let's take a look at the effects. Let's take a look at the regulation and effects that are happening here. So we'd already kind of talked about this whole hypothalamus, CRH, ACTH, cortisol little axis here. Let's take a look at all of the effects, because remember, the main effect is that it increases the levels of all nutrients in the bloodstream. Let's take a look and see how it does that. Well, first of all, it's going to target the liver right here, and whenever it does that, that stimulates something called gluconeogenesis. So let's break that down. Let me see. So gluconeogenesis, always use your root words, because I think I said this before in the videos, these words are really kind of telling you what they mean. Some of them not so much, but a lot of them are telling you what they mean. So let's break it down. Genesis, the beginning, right? The creation. Neo, new. And gluco, you've seen that before, glucose. So this is going in and creating new glucoses. Well, how can we create new glucoses in our body? Actually, what we do is we can go in and take fatty acids. We can take different amino acids. We can rearrange them and create glucose that way. So that's how it's going to do that. All right, so if we want to create new glucoses from amino acids and fatty acids, well, we got to get those somewhere, right? Yeah. So here is what happens in all cells. Stimulation of protein catabolism. So we go in and break down, except for hepatocytes, the certain cells are going to go in and break down the protein so they can spit out amino acids into the bloodstream. And then, of course, that is going to, that can go over to the liver, and that's where we are going to create these glucoses. Also, another way that we can get at fatty acids, the way that we get that is going to be the lipolysis right there. So that's where we're going in and breaking down lipids, and we're putting glycerol and we're putting fatty acids into the bloodstream so we can go in and make glucose that way. So it's going in and it is increasing all nutrients in the bloodstream, but amino acids, glycerol, fatty acids, they're being used by the liver to make glucose. So I'm sure you're thinking, well, why do we need this? What it is, it's going in, remember one of the triggers is stress. So it's going in and attempting to resist stress. It's going in and making sure that your body is well fed in times of stress. So it's kind of, cortisol is kind of like your grandma maybe. Oh, you look so stressed. I'm gonna give you all this food. I'm gonna feed you. I'm gonna make sure that you're well fed whenever you're stressed out. But it's also important for tissue repair. If you do have some kind of physical stress that's going on in the body, this is really good to help repair any kind of injured tissue, especially those amino acids as well. So that's going to be some of the reasons why we need it. Like I said, there's usually a little bit of cortisol in the bloodstream to help make sure that we do have glucose to stay at certain levels. That's really good in times of maybe our in between meals. I get stressed out in between meals. I mean, if you haven't eaten in a while, then that's a big stress, right? Some people consider that a big stress. Let's take a look and see some of the issues that might come about if you have high doses of cortisol. Maybe you're getting high doses of cortisol because you are having some kind of allergic reaction. Maybe your asthma is flared up and you're having a lot of problems with your asthma and you have to take some cortisone. So there's several reasons why people might be get doses of cortisol. Or maybe you are chronically stressed and you have chronic high doses of cortisol that way. So one reason why some people take it for allergies, asthma, and things like that is because, look, it decreases inflammation. Some people can get cortisone shots in their back or their knee because they're having inflammation that are occurring, and that is going to be the good thing about it. The way that it decreases inflammation, though, is it kind of kills off these white blood cells that are responsible for inflammation. And if you reduce your white blood cell count, then it can suppress your immune system. So that might be one reason why you don't want to have cortisol for a long period of time. But there's other reasons why you don't want to take cortisol for long periods of time. But another thing that happens with high doses of cortisol is it actually makes you retain sodium, which in turn makes you retain water. So sometimes you can get a little bloated from all this water weight that your body is hanging on to. So if we take a look, and this is exactly what I was talking about therapeutic doses of corticosterone if you need it for some reason. But again, there are side effects from it. So in the next video we're going to be taking a look at is we're going to take a look at some disorders of the adrenal gland, but we're also going to be taking a look at the stress response as well. So until next time.